Have you ever found yourself in a conversation when, even after stating everything you needed to, you left feeling as though you lost? Have you ever experienced that knot in your throat, as though every word said had driven you further from your own power? Maybe you surround yourself with loud, disruptive, mocking, dominant people hiding their arrogance under confidence. Perhaps deep down you thought that silence was a sign of weakness, that not defending yourself was surrendering, that not reacting was losing. But suppose I told you all of this was a mirage. True power has never been expressed in words, rather it exists absent from them. Among the most misinterpreted intellectuals in history, Nietzsche observed something few people would have the guts to acknowledge. Those that talk excessively expose too much. Those who have to persuade are already behind others. The world teaches us that we have to fight, explain ourselves, defend our beliefs as though every exchange were a struggle for the truth. But Nietzsche suggests something else, a more subdued, more deadly, infinitely more intelligent route. Silence, he felt, is an overpowering presence rather than only a lack of noise. Silence disturbs, it throws off balance, it forces the other to face himself. This video is for those who experience continual neglect, overshadowing, invalidation. For those who leave talks feeling as though nobody really heard what they intended to say. For you who is bored of being the easy target, the nice one, the one who tries to keep the peace while others exploit your peacekeeping capacity. Maybe you have mistook your silence for submission, but today I will show you that silence can be your most effective weapon, and that real success comes from never having to fight an argument. Prepare yourself to view silence in an other perspective, not as an absence of reaction, but rather as the definitive answer. Let's explore Nietzsche's concepts and learn how, without words, we might master any circumstance. Why do we find ourselves driven to react, to refute, to correct, to prove our accuracy? Deep down, we have been trained to feel that the truth has to be defended exactly tooth and nail, that we are letting others win if we say nothing. But Nietzsche saw this as a sign of our ultimate frailty, that of fear of looking weak, and the ego sits behind this fear. A brittle ego that cannot stand interrogation, that confuses conflict with attack, and that renders any discussion into a battlefield. According to Nietzsche, most people search power rather than the truth when they argue. They want to confirm their convictions not because they are strong, but rather because everything falls apart if they are rocked. Argumentation is not, in this sense, a tool of wisdom. It is defensive armor, an urgent scream from the ego to keep narrative control. And from what standpoint does this follow? That you have already lost when you feel driven to defend yourself or prove your point, so engaging their game. The basic need to defend your position reveals that you remain caught in the need to be accepted, validated, understood. To Nietzsche, this was the herd morality. The behavior of people who live up to others' expectations and wish to be regarded as good, right, just. Still, your weakness stems precisely from your search for approval. True strength, Nietzsche claimed, comes from not needing to persuade others rather than from trying to do so. It is in your vision even among rejection, criticism, and laughter. It is in being misinterpreted but not shaken. He suggests to us a kind of power that is internal mastery rather than measured in verbal triumphs. A power derived from your capacity to remain cool under pressure is losing control among people around you. A power that increases with your non-reaction. You must realize if you really wish to win. Discussing is like playing a theater, and the first to get up to act has already lost. Nietzsche understood that a reactionary mind is a subjugated mind. Since the observing mind is above the necessity to prove anything, it is the dangerous one. But then, if we should not react, how can we exercise influence over others? Should words fail us, how can we convey our power to others without using a single word? For that Nietzsche had an answer, and it resides in the ideal of the Übermensch, the being who overcomes the constraints of ordinary morality and rules the planet by perfect self-control. The next section will look at this figure and help us to grasp how strategically silence is a weapon of dominance. You're ready for this level? Since from here on out silence starts to speak. Click the subscribe button and follow the channel if this material makes sense to you. I appreciate you supporting. Nietzsche did not pen for the feeble. He wrote for the few brave enough to examine their own suffering, face it, and turn it into strength. For him, the typical human life caught in moralism, conformity, and the demand for applause from others. But there is another kind of being, rare, dangerous, free. The Übermensch, sometimes known as Overman, does not live by responding to the world. He forms the world according to his own picture. The most amazing aspect is also, usually, he does this in total silence. The Übermensch has no need of winning arguments. He does not participate in low-grade emotional games. He watches. He gets. He has seen something that others overlook. Thus, he deliberately decides when to talk and, more importantly, when to keep quiet. Silence is a language. It is not one meant for persuasion. It generates presence. The silence of the Übermensch is not empty. There is a threat here, that is power. It sounds to me like self-mastery. Others yell, but with his look he commands respect. Others explain. He watches and exposes others' shortcomings just with his composure. His silence is like a wall. On the other side, those who oppose try to figure out what underlie it. And in that hopelessness, they make mistakes. They expose more than is necessary. They fall off their feet. There is not passivity about this silence. Absolute control of one's own energy is what I mean. Strategic economy is what I mean here. Every spoken word, the Übermensch knows, is a revealed movement. Every emotional response is a weak point exposed. For this reason, he stays silent. Not because he has nothing to say, but rather because he has no need to say anything. He has gone beyond the necessity to prove something to someone. Already his presence speaks for him. More than that, it disturbs, since his silence compels others to look inside and deal with their own noise. Those that master silence are kings in a society of noise. Nietzsche considered the Übermensch as one who generates his own morality, his own rules, his own values. He is not depending on anyone's approval. He is thus feared as well. Nothing disturbs more than someone who cannot be controlled by guilt, fear, or the need of acceptance. His quiet serves as the shield against all these systems, and when he talks, his words will destroy an empire. Still, this begs a fundamental issue. For others, why is silence so disturbing? Why then do so many people feel threatened when someone just decides not to react? What occurs inside the human mind when an overwhelming absence replaces the expected confrontation? The solution is found in psychology. And in the next section, we will precisely look at this. Understanding the power of silence helps us first to grasp the turmoil it causes in the minds of other people. And believe me, it is far deeper than first seems. Silence is not only the lack of noise, it functions as a mirror, and what it reflects, for many, intolerable. Choosing not to react does not only silence you. You are making the other person face their own arguments without outside opposition and hear their own voice. And that disturbs. Since most people do not express themselves in their speech, they talk to persuade themselves to hide the emptiness between their words and who they are, so safeguarding themselves. Then, when you say nothing, their mask comes off. Social psychology has already shown that silence in confrontational circumstances is seen as judgment. Whether or not you are listening counts nothing. The speaker starts to look vulnerable. The reason is, they lose narrative control without your response, without your reaction. The human brain strikes a state of alert. The area of fear and anxiety, the amygdala, goes active. The other person starts to project their own worries onto you. Does he evaluate me? Did he pick up my insecurity? Does he know I'm pulling a front? And in this psychological battlefield, silence functions as an unseen weapon. It cuts right where nobody else sees, but everyone feels. Nietzsche sensed this long before current psychology verified it. The typical person, for him, lives as a slave to their reactions. They speak out of fear of being forgotten, act impulsively, react out of conceit. Still silent is the better spirit, that which masters oneself. Since they understand that every word spoken is a piece turned to the enemy, every emotional response is an automatic scream pointing the target of attack. Furthermore, silence is terrible for manipulators. Those who find great satisfaction in emotional regulation of others rely on their responses to keep in the game. You break the cycle and the manipulator panics when you do not react. Their own position depends on your answer to be validated. They miss themselves without it. They come out. They exhibit the weakness they have worked so hard to suppress. Still, there is something even more fundamental. Silence also sets off unresolved grief. It triggers traumas of abandonment, guilt, rejection. The other person suddenly finds they are not at the center. Their words do not suffice, that their existence has no influence. And this is unacceptable for the ego of a narcissist. Thus, silence does not only help you to defend yourself. You are confronting the core of the illusion, where it most hurts. Silence, therefore, calls for strength. It is awkward for you too, not only for others, given it runs counter to all that has been taught, against the want to react, to defend oneself, to explain oneself. Still, its strength is exactly for this reason, since it requires expertise. Furthermore, mastery is really what power is. It's time to advance now that you know how silence functions in the mind of the other, how it triggers fears, breaks down defenses, and unmasks postures, to deliberately, strategically become someone who employs this strength instead of merely an observer. The next section will show just how to turn quiet into a conscious weapon, how to prove any point of view without using words, and once you learn to do this, nobody will be able to rein you in. The time has come to stop only when one starts using silence and appreciates its power. Because knowledge devoid of experience is only theoretical, you will learn going forward to turn your silence into a precision weapon, no longer as a defensive shield but rather as a sharp knife ready to cut through masks of others at the precise moment least expected. And the first step is basic yet cruel. When your will shouts for a reply, be quiet. One has to be strong for this, because everything in you will seek response. It will be seeking to defend itself. It will want to establish its correctness. But that ambition is poison. Every time you give in to it, you expose your ongoing control over others. You still give what they think top importance. You are still engaging in their game. Only when you kill that need will true silence arise. When you realize you owe nothing to anyone, that existence does not depend on the truth needing spoken words. Observations constitute the second weapon of silence. You listen while others chat, get lost in explanations and try to cover the void with words. But you ignore someone waiting their turn to talk. Your listening is like that of a hunter following the footsteps of prey in the woodland. You see the anxieties buried between the lines, the minute conflicts, the insecurities passed for arrogance. You also save all of this. Speaking will be surgical because it is how you speak. It will be with the accuracy of someone who rules the emotional ground of the other. Time stands as the third weapon. Discover how to let silence last. One component of tension is the pause. Moreover, tension is power. The other person collapses internally as they wait for your response and it doesn't come. The discomfort mounts. Their mind starts to occupy the emptiness with presumptions, worries, paranoia. More impact can come from a simple glance from you combined with silence than from 10 well-crafted sentences. The fourth weapon is erratic nature. You start to be erratic when you master silence, and one always worries about the erratic, since people have no idea what to expect of you, and they lose the advantage when they have no idea what to expect. They start to move with caution. They begin to count each word. You reverse the reasoning of interaction. From reactive, you become the conversational gravitational center. Silence at this point isn't absence, it is pure domination. But proceed cautiously. Keep silence from being confused with passivity clear. Weakness was never something Nietzsche promoted. We are discussing active, tense, charged with intention silence here. You are not stifling. You are choosing, getting ready, orienting yourself with a kind of strength that is not outwardly evident. And you can speak when the appropriate moment arises. That is, the moment silence has already said everything it needs to. One line of thought, an exact remark. Something that ends the conversation is truer, deeper, more unquestionable, not because it was louder. But this raises an even more delicate problem. We have discussed how to employ silence to win up to now. There are times, though, when the game transcends mere winning. It's regarding emotionally surviving. Sometimes people are not only arguing with you, they are draining you, playing with you, using you. And you are daily giving away your power without realizing it. You are being dominated without any one word needed spoken. And that brings us to the lowest point of this road. When silence is no more tactic, but rather a silent scream from someone who has lost control over their own life. We shall expose this truth in the next section, show how you might be used, not even aware of it at first. Because Nietzsche already knew, even if you believe you are avoiding conflict, someone might be building an empire on your silence. Is silence not more perverted than anything else? It is being trained to believe that silence is your only choice. Mature is defined by swallowing your anger, yielding in debates, avoiding conflict at all costs. That silence is a sign of balance. If I told you, though, that this could be a trap, this kind of silence is not wisdom many times. It seems to be subdued compliance. Nietzsche saw this with terrible clarity. Often what you call peace is simply your domesticated surrender. Have you seen how some people use your quietness? Your capacity for listening, to ignore, to back off from conflict? You let them. They force their ideas, impose their will, occupy areas that belong to you. You persuade yourself that it's not worth fighting, that harmony is preferable, that it's not that important of a matter. Nonetheless, the truth is one. You are paying a quite heavy cost for this false peace. The worst of all is also those that know you will never react are using you. Nietzsche spoke of the morality of slaves, that value system created by the weak to survive in a world dominated by the strong. It is the morality of guilt, of resignation, of friendliness. An invisible code instructing you to reject yourself, minimize yourself, fit, and yet feel moral for it. But Nietzsche wrote not for those who resign themselves. He wrote for those who dare to break free from these bonds, for those who see they are being exploited and choose to quit engaging in their own submission. You are giving up your power without realizing it when you embrace this kind of silence, that which swallows you from within. Others' expectations are helping to define you. You no longer really are yourself. You are the one others need you to be. And this is the will to power opposite what Nietzsche described. True will to power is not to dominate others. It is not to yell. One is meant to rule oneself. It is to take charge of your own story. It is to be quiet, not because you are scared, but rather because you owe nothing to anyone. This silence of submission must die. In its place, the silence of presence must blossom, the one that does not bend, that does not humiliate, that does not apologize for existing, the one who stands out among turmoil and without words alters the direction of the events. This is the silence that Nietzsche would value, the silence of the person who has come to rule themselves. How then to get at this level? How can one go from being controlled to master of their own presence? How can you destroy the herd morality inside of you and rise to be someone with authority even in silence? The most potent figure of Nietzsche's philosophy, the Übermensch, holds the solution. We have spoken already about him. It is time now to learn how one might become one. The next and last chapter will teach you how to live this different kind of human being. The world needs those who master silence and reign with it, not more talkers. We are at the last point now, and right now I need you to grasp one thing with all the clarity available. Silence does not equate to absence. It is not void. It is not space between sentences. Real silence is only pure presence. Mastery is what I mean here. It is the indication that you are not responding to the surroundings. Your simple presence is helping to shape it. Nietzsche never wrote for people who would have been happy to survive. He wrote for those seeking transcendence, for those who are ready to remove the masks society forced, even if it will hurt. The silence of the Übermensch is not the silence of the cowardly nor of the oppressed. It is the silence of the warrior who won even before the fight starts. It is the stillness of one who no longer must justify anything to anyone, since he is aware of his own self. More importantly, though, he is aware of his deserved value. Look at your life right now. You have stayed silent out of fear how many times? Out of guilt? Not wanting to disturb? Out of you have let others decide for you, speak for you, walk over your truth how many times? There is enough. Living this way, Nietzsche would argue, is an offense against existence itself. Adopting this kind of silence is a sign of betrayal of yourself. Your silence needs to change its tone starting today. It has to stop being a means of escape and start to be an invisible shout of authority, a boundary, an affirmation of who you are even if nobody else understands. Who you are is not something anyone else needs to know. You have to live it. And one needs bravery for that as well. Are you courageous enough? Then comment below. I go for the quiet that demands dignity, not only so I know you made it thus far, but also so you may publicly validate this decision, this dedication to yourself. Since words have power, even in relation to silence. And do not stop here. Crucially, the next video it will take your mind much farther and broaden what you discovered here. See it not for me, but since you deserve to surpass. And keep in mind, the wise decide when, the weak shout, the strong remain silent.